Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, here we go. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. I hope you're well and safe. We're talking about the Lankavatara this week, but a subject that bubbles up constantly in our daily practice. We practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism, we follow Nichiren's doctrine, and there's a lot of conversation about karma. By the time we attain the level of perception and the methodology of direct invocation of our enlightened mind, we converse about karma in kind of a general way, and you do it, I do it. Anyone that I have heard or spoken with about Buddhism, and I will say that it's a conversation that happens a bunch about from young, new to Buddhism, early students of Mahayana Buddhism, whether it's the Lotus Sutra or the Lankavatara, as we're discussing. This obsession that we have, and it really truly is, it is an obsession that's woven into every fiber of our being, to categorize, to cubify, to quantify, to discriminate, to delineate, to identify, and that word is really important. Identification is a process of not simply labeling that as that, but it's an investment of self, an identification of something. In other words, we invest our thinking about what we are, our existence, based on the thingifying of everything we identify of us, around us, in and around everywhere. This is just how many words can you come up with? Classify, distinguish. I just could go on and on. I could do an hour-long video on just words about this thing that we do, thinging. We are thinging, not a thong, we are thinging. Thingifying everything. And we do the same thing with Buddhism. And we talk about good karma, bad karma, karma, effects, causes. That person has that kind of karma. Oh, you're making a cause, you're going to get the effect. I'm going to show you effect. Wow, what is going on? You've heard me. I've had videos I've posted. You can go in a little search on our channel and search karma, and you'll get dozens of videos that talk about good karma, bad karma, where does karma come, what is karma. But there's an aspect of karma that, since we're talking about the Lankavatara, and we're talking about this minutia of what is and isn't, and is there and is, or is there and isn't, and all of that being irrelevant. There's a statement I read late in the Lankavatara, 878. So it's really late. It's almost the end of the Lankavatara. When the world is seen as quiescent, the mind ceases and the first stage of joy is attained, and finally they will reach Buddhahood. That's big. And it really wraps up in very few words what this whole sermon is about. The mind ceases when the world is seen as quiescent. Not when the world is quiescent, which you've often heard me use that word, speaking about energy and quiescent energy, where nothing exists, but everything is potential. How do you formulate an idea of what that is in your mind? Well, the answer's kind of ipso facto here, because when you see the world, when you experience the world as quiescent, as energy, the multitudinal formations of energy, without distinction. See, the moment you get into distinctions, making things, you cease to see the foundation of energy that everything is. And you start to pick things out, and you identify with those things. The moment that happens, you stir feelings of attachment. Good, bad, indifferent. But as you've heard me say over and over and over again, karma is energy in action, in movement, in amalgamation, in formation. Once the formation takes place and there's an instantiation, a manifestation, now it's thingified. So consider this. Make a little mental exercise out of this. Look about you at all of the furniture, walls, house, grass, trees, people, and try with your mind to envision all of those things as not solid, not fluid, not water, not iron, not wood, not flesh, not bone, not blood, but everything as a huge gathering of little tiny, imperceptible little blobs of energy vibrating. I mean, you've seen enough movies and special effects. You can do this. This is a mental exercise now. I'm not telling you this is the way it is, but I'm saying this is a way you can think or conceive about the way it is. If you can break down everything you see and hear and what you're sitting on, as well as yourself, as these infinitesimal little blobs of energy just arranged. Have you ever seen anything like that in a special effects CGI movie where things just sort of disassemble or reassemble? Hell, you could go all the way back to Star Trek and the transporter, how everyone with that weird swing sound becomes just particularized, and then somewhere else the particles appear out of nowhere, and there's Captain Kirk. Right? Even that rudimentary. That's not well done, but it's the idea I'm trying to put in your head. Try to make that really vivid in your imagination. And imagine that one little or 10 little or 10,000 little blobs from whatever this is in front of you, whether it's a human, a chair, or a tree, could exchange those little blobs with anything else. Suddenly, the thingness made of the blobs becomes a little more distant, a little less solid. And the energy blobs are exchangeable. What I want you to understand is in this imaginary space is that there's a certain equanimity. There are colors and shininess and variations, but they can be exchanged. The wall for Bob, for me, for the stool I'm on, can be the tree. They're just little balls of energy. They can move around, exchange one another. Suddenly I don't feel so, well, that's not really a tree. It's just an assemblage that it represents treeness and the stoolness and bobness and wallness. Right? Those are all just sort of formations of the same little balls of energy. All right? Now, while you're in that mental space, you can kind of, with your mind, now feel removed from that, because even you are that. And so now you begin to see the whole world as this little roiling, little buzzing around, little tiny miniature balls of energy everywhere. It's kind of, it's a little maybe off kilter, but also it's fascinating. And what's even most fascinating, and at some point you're going to feel like, how do I belong to this? How does any of it belong to me? It doesn't even belong to itself. It's just, what do you call it? I call it a process. What do you want to call it? The energy at large, the vibrations of the universe, words. Bleh. But one thing is certain, is how you identify them as one distinct from another starts to kind of fall apart, really, because they're all the same thing. Equanimity. Maybe you're starting to understand the way Buddhism sees the world around us. It's the attachments that are samsara, not the world. The world's just doing its thing. It's energy formation. It's your and I attachment to make things identifiable and quantifiable, and that identification is where samsara exists. And that's where all our suffering comes from. If we can start to see the whole buzzing universe of just energy, then the world becomes quiescent. Quiescent in the sense that it's no longer, our mind is no longer working so diligently, constantly, to identify the differences, because there really aren't any. It's just the world process. And it's quiescent only because it's all the same. It's not specific. And when you really get that, even the color that we identify with things starts to go away. Everything just becomes this glorious little shiny photons of energy. This big, huge existence. And so that apparatus that identifies everything no longer has anything to identify, so it stops. When the world is seen as quiescent, not a jumble of a billion different things, but all the same, the mind ceases. The monkeys shut up because there's nothing for them to yelp about. They just don't exist anymore. But that's not your mind of awareness. That's just your mind of samsara, your mind of attachments, distinguishments, identification. The first stage of joy is attained. The release. Oh, wow, all this stress and anxiety for what? And finally, they will reach Buddhahood. That's your aha moment of the Lankavatara. That's the perfection of wisdom. So I ask you, if you're in that vision at all right now, if you understand the equanimity of it, how can you then define any of that? Again, define any. These are the words of identification as good or bad or positive or negative. They're still simply irrelevant terms. Those terms are terms of attachment, judgment, distinguishment. We use them all the time because those words are introduced later in our teachings. And when we get to the Lotus Sutra, the idea of good, bad, good, evil, positive, negative, they are in fact there, but it's not about karma. It's about what actions, energy and action, karma, but we don't call it that, what actions we take and how they support or obfuscate our path to Buddhahood. What he's been talking about all along. But we creatures of habit, energy, we creatures of karmic, we got to distinguish the this from the that from the We invent good karma, bad karma. There's just no such thing. What may, let me say it differently. What actions, what perceptions may to you present an obstacle to your practice, to your attainment of Buddhahood. Notice I didn't say an obstacle to your happiness, because that's the common parlance. But that's the obfuscation. That's the difficulty of language getting in the way. If something is perceived by you as an obstacle, the first question you should ask is, obstacle to what? Obstacle to my getting the new couch? Obstacle for me to be getting love from my partner? Obstacle for me to have a good relationship with blah, blah, blah. Those are earthly desires, my friend. Those are the real obstacles, and what they are obstacles to is your realization of Buddhahood. So, more specifically, to answer a recent example I was given by one of us, what does it mean when somebody says, quite naturally, as you practice, you will bring out your negative karma? Right? Words to that effect. You've used up your good karma. You need to put more good karma in the bank. Oh gosh, I remember hearing that from organizations unnamed. It's so absolutely ridiculous. But it's very meaningful to us. We take it to heart. Stop it. There is no good karma, bad karma. Karma is the reason we exist. It's everything. It's energy with action. Formations of energy, their kinetics, their momentum. That's what creates space-time. Where would you and I be without space-time? Huh? Right? So get it square in your head. Karma is simply the process of everything. And all we're trying to achieve with our practice is to get our mind to perceive the world correctly, perceive it at its fundament, that everything is this energetic action. There's no good or bad or threatening or seducing. That's all invention of the mind by identification with little tiny portions of this whole huge process. So let's address that. Well, you're going to get of course you're going to get obstacles. So if you're in a huge warehouse, and for a moment you get a glimpse in that warehouse and you see stuff everywhere, and suddenly the sun extinguishes from the sky and no power, what do they call it? An EMP went off. There's no power, no lights. It is pitch black dark in that warehouse. But you remember seeing a refrigerator with food and water in it at the other end of that warehouse. You just got a little glimpse of it. A little sign above it said food and beverages free. Okay. And you say, well, I'm going to go get something to eat. And the minute you start walking, you bump your foot into something and you take a tumble, you bang up your knee, you dedicated so much energy to moving forward, you rolled onto your shoulder and your face planted on the concrete, and then your head hits something and you think, I'm going to die. This obstacle is far too great for me to get to my food. Well, the obstacle, it was always there. It didn't just creep up on you because you endeavored to do something life-affirming. Do you see? It's not that because I tried to be good and become a Buddha, up from the evils of the underground came these obstacles to swallow me whole. You're watching way too many video games. Okay? Yet, I know this is how it's described to us in some form by so many people who don't understand what's happening. Consider your samsaric mind that warehouse of infinite stuff in it. Because that's what identification is. And then you're trying Namu Myoho Renge Kyo to turn on the light. And see how everything is just little energy. Even the food and water you want at the other end of the warehouse is a samsaric loop. Right? But let's say for a moment that at the other end of that, where the food and water is, there's a switch that will somehow defeat all of the obfuscations and the darkness and turn on a light. Buddhahood. Now I see everything. But I don't just see everything. I see everything as it truly is. As formation energies. No differences. No identification. The quiescence of the process, of which I am also. So it's easy to see what you tripped on. It's easy to see that, ooh, I better not walk that way because there's some sharp stuff over there, and skirt that and go this way. It's easy to see when the light is on. Then that mind of wondering what horrible demons have come up with devices to cause you so many obstacles, it's laughable, right? Because that's all invention, all constructed. This is the Lankavatara. The mind of Buddha is the mind that perceives the actual reality, not the constructed reality. That is the samsaric condition. We're in it. But without this samsaric reality, we have no light to turn on. So the Buddhahood mind can only be perceived here. What a conundrum, huh? Because guess what? When you're not here, when you're not human, when you're not a living organism, however defined that may be, you don't have that samsaric capacity, well then the mind doesn't exist at all. It's not that it ceases, it just doesn't exist. So there is no mind of Buddha light to turn on. Now we're in a place where energy itself is quiescent. There's no action, there's no karma, there's just energy. Well, if there's no action and there's no karma, there's no mind, there's no perception, there's no bag of bob. See how all of this works together? It's all really saying the same thing. So many words. So I've talked about, this is late in the Lankavatara too. I've talked about the 9 consciousnesses. If you want to learn more about a different way of talking about karma, go look at the consciousnesses. Just recently, like a month ago, I put up 9 consciousnesses, Myo Renge Kyo, and a couple of other conceptual words. And here from the Alaya consciousness, the 8th consciousness, not the 9th. From the Alaya, all mental activities take their rise like the waves of an ocean. The waves are of the ocean, are the ocean. They're just tendencies and conditions on the surface of the ocean as it interacts with what is above the surface of the ocean, right? With habit energy as cause, karma as cause, all things are born in accordance with conditions of causation. The Alaya consciousness. It's our first step into samsara, where the other consciousnesses then manifest, all the way to sound, sight, taste, feeling, hearing, right? They build and they begin from a quiescent state of energy, Amala, Buddhahood. And when we invoke Buddhahood in samsara, we wrap the other 8 consciousnesses with the light of clear perception, Buddhahood. We don't get rid of them. We see them for what they are, formations of energy, all the same, albeit with secondary, tertiary, so on and so forth, acting upon them, become identified with thingness. And there are many, 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 many minds that are identified as their own identification of thingness that compete for definitions of their various experiences of things, the same things, which are ultimately not different from one another, including the perceiver. Because when you get back to energy, energy is energy. There is no good or bad energy. There is no Bob energy, Sylvain energy, Janet energy, so on and so forth. It's just energy. It's unformed. It's potential. I don't know. If you have more questions about what is karma, or maybe the other way around, what does it mean when somebody tells me I have bad karma or evil karma, or I have money karma or car karma? Oh my goodness. Can you hear the monkeys? Karma, car karma, dish karma, overweight karma, worry karma. It's nonsense. Boy, we love doing that though, don't we? Every time we recognize that in ourselves, we should think Buddha. Thank the universe I have this practice. Myoho Renge Kyo. Well, you're practicing Lotus Sutra Buddhism. You're going to run into your karma. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I just did. Bye. Shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Let's come on over. Let's chant about the karma I'm running into. Let's see if we can't have an interesting conversation to open our minds about what karma is and isn't. So you can stop saying such foolish things. And I don't know who you're talking to when you say that. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to a lens. By the way, thank you for participating in this self-talk. But I feel you. I feel you because it's common parlance. It's just more evident. It should just make you laugh. Rather than think, maybe I missed something. Just think, wow, we silly mindful creatures constantly trying to define things that don't need definition. That's the grand joke. We spend all of our time distinguishing, identifying, cataloging something that doesn't require, need, or even follow rules of distinguishment. It doesn't. The universe simply doesn't care. It's just being. It's just energy formations. And for all our vast knowledge, just try to further dissect and identify. Look, it's all just happening. Isn't it enough to be amazed by that? Do we really need gods and dragons and Satan or bad, good, in order to experience this amazing process? Do we need those things? The only thing those things are useful for is to use as weapons against other us's. to manipulate, to make feel bad, feel good. Listen to me, I'll save you, or I'll show you how lesser you are. It's all manipulation. And what do we know about manipulation and false labels? And it's the world of anger. And we live in the time, and this has been all time, but this era of Mappo, Shakyamuni identified it as predominated by ego, predominated by avarice, greed, manipulation, backstabbing. Even without knowing it, the behavior, the natural tendency of behavior in our age is competition and wordplay, divisiveness, and foolishness, falling for it. And why is that an evil age? Because it draws us further and further away from the simple task, Myoho Renge Kyo, of Buddhahood, of seeing clearly what we're capable, what we have the capacity to see, to experience right now. Myoho Renge Kyo. The rest of it is just chattering monkeys, my friends. We do it, I do it, everyone does it. But when it comes to our practice, please, 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 the minute it rears up, even in your own head, oh, that must be my karma. Yeah, that's what it is. That must be my energy. Does the ever-ready battery bunny ever look back on itself and go, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm running low on energy? Come on. It's just silliness. Everything we experience in our lives is a way of refocusing our mind. If you experience it as negative, as threatening, as making you cry, okay. But know that that is not an obstacle to your Buddhahood. That it is because you are pursuing your Buddhahood that you will begin to see your man-made obstacles clearly. So cry about the obstacle, but don't cry that the obstacle came out of the ground and grabbed you by the neck and pulled you away. Cry that you've allowed that obstacle to exist in your life for as long as you have without perceiving it. Let it go. Cry to wave it goodbye. I don't need that stress and anxiety anymore. That's what obstacles are defined as by Nichiren, by the Lotus Sutra, by Shakyamuni. But that message doesn't get put across in those that would manipulate you, to use it to demonstrate whatever their agenda is. When you run into an obstacle that shocks you or that threatens you, stand aside from it. Be thankful that you are now at a position where you can see it. You see it. You don't have to trip over the angle iron and everything else on the floor of the warehouse. Look, there it is. Wow. Glad I didn't trip over it. Obstacles are opportunities only if you understand them this way. Too often, it's not explained this way, So in our modern minds, when some other person tells us, yeah, you're going to raise obstacles in your life as you practice, it's a good reason to quit. I've heard that. Then the obstacle becomes a thing, a real thing in your way. But that's not what an obstacle is. An obstacle is turning the light on and going, oh crap, I almost ran right into that big old spider web. Yeah, it might put you off and scare you, but you're not in it. Unless you thingify it, and then you swim right into it. Oh my God, this is miserable. But you're doing it to yourself. You're given an opportunity to see the obstacle, and rather than going, oh, I don't need this obstacle, I can think differently. I can see this as an opportunity for change. What do I need to do to get rid of this ever coming up again? Maybe there's some simple things, some behavioral patterns, some things that a fine you have to pay, whatever it is. It is the nature of your creation of that obstacle in the first place that you are undoing. And if you could simply go to your Butsudan and with your mandala of Gohanzan, chant fervently enough to open your mind of Buddhahood, click, click, click. Much of that very same obstacle will destroy itself because the light will obviate it. And your path toward disassembling it and making it go away will become lessened, easier, a matter of course, even to the point that it disappears completely, because you're the one who made it in the first place. We are the creators. Our monkey mind is the creator of all stress, suffering, anxiety. This is the lesson of Buddhism. All of it. So when somebody tells you, or you tell you, obstacle, I'm popping a pimple. You've heard me say that. But understand when I say that, what I mean. The pimple didn't get given to you. You made it. It is of thingifying that makes it exist. But in reality, it's just formations of energy that if you put them back in their proper place, it's just a wave in the ocean. Sail on. I don't know how else I can talk about this. At least I'm not thinking about it now. Perhaps if you have something to say about it, something I haven't covered, say it in the comments. And I'll disassemble it and see, and we'll look at it and go, okay, what is this really? Because I guarantee you, sooner or later, you're going to get back to the formations of energy. That is what's going on. Anything else, as Shakyamuni would say, is illusion. And your attachment to the illusion is delusion. Just compounding the problem. And that's life. Life is suffering. Suffering comes from craving. End the craving. Four Noble Truths. It's been there from the get-go. But we are so stubborn. We're so smart. We can dissect things deeper than a astrophysicist, particle physicist. Still dissecting. Well, it's not really, we know a particle isn't really a thing anymore. It's just a lump in the gravy. It's a waveform. It's here, it's not here. It's a thing. I know it's a thing. Yeah. Yeah, we're funny. But that doesn't mean we don't really feel our pain. We're so good at it. Right? It's really, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of us, but I am making fun of us because it's almost like we really, really, really enjoy struggle. Why? It's not necessary. But perhaps that's the component of being a sentient being, to understand that which we need to let go, that isn't really real, that's solely invented simply for our ability to see what we've invented. Maybe that's encouraging in a kind of off-center sort of way. So is karma bad? Is karma good? Do you instantiate negative karma simply because you're trying so hard to get to that goalpost and spike a ball of Buddhahood? No, all that energy is already there. And it's in the formations of your samsaric reality that it exists, and that it is reinforced, and that it is given power. But that power is all based on imagination. So strip it of its power. It's an obstacle is a word that sounds so solid. But an obstacle is just a condition that exists. And so turn the light switch on. Stop walking in the dark. Well, I don't know what else I can tell you. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Chant. Chant to turn the light on. Chant to minimize your stumbling around in the dark. It works. You kind of have to know it works sometimes before it works. When you first start, you know it works. But when you start hitting these obstacles, you start wondering and doubting, and you kind of have to commit to know that it works in order for it to see the result. That's all on you. It's your obstacle. Destroy it. All right? I know you can do it. It's why we're here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this sheds some kind of insight for you. I want you to enjoy your practice. I want you to see the immense potential in it. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. We'll get back to the Lankavatara perhaps tomorrow. But that's a really critical insight on the nature of karma, quiescence. I was so tickled when I saw that actual word in that translation. Cool. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.